I have the honor of being joined by two amazing, strong women that I just had to have on the show and bring up. Amy Riddell is an amazing conference director running 3 events throughout Canada and the United States. And we'll be introducing her in just a second. And you may recognize Miss Leslie Hughes from our last broadcast. She is a personal branding, marketing, and LinkedIn specialist, teaches classes on that, and we had an amazing discussion with her. So we're going to be talking today about building your brand, but primarily through speaking, through events, and how you can get your message out there to build your brand as an expert in whatever field you are. So let's start off with an introduction from Amy Riddell. Tell us a little bit about, because today is your exciting anniversary with the company you're with. Tell us a little bit about what you do and the events that you're hosting.
Okay. Well, first of all, Hans, I run 10 events across Canada and the US. Hello.
Sorry, I was going by categories, not by actual number of events. My bad.
No, you're right. Under 3 separate categories. But yes, thank you. Today is actually my 14th anniversary with McGregor Communications, which was formerly Diversified Communications. So I have been running the Project World, Project Summit, and Business Analyst World events since 2007. Which has been very, very exciting. I also used to run them in Australia as well. So, one of the most exciting.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it's true. I used to go to Australia for the entire month of June. We would do our Australian tour and hit Perth and Sydney and Melbourne. Yeah, it was incredible. And I guess one of the things I love most about the job, aside from meeting all you wonderful people, is it's just given me an opportunity to travel to places I probably would have never ever gone to on my own dime. And it's been pretty magical. I'm not going to lie. I'm one of those people that, that talks about how much I love my job, and it annoys the heck out of everyone because I actually really do. I'm excited to talk today about this. We're kind of right in the throes of getting ready for our fall season, and lots of people are applying to speak and sending in applications and abstracts and things like this. So it's a great opportunity to talk about, what I look for, what our audience looks for, and to help prepare people, if that's like a step that they want to take.
Wonderful. And Leslie is back with us. Leslie, for all the new viewers we have here, remind everyone what your area of expertise is and how you help so many people get to find out what is their amazing superpowers and how they can better represent what they're able to do.
Well, just one of the many hats that I wear. I guess when I tell people what I do, the focus really is on LinkedIn profile writing. So one of the things that I love to do is really help people tell their story, stand in their value and tell their story, because that's not always easy. And Amy will get into that, I'm sure, insofar as the public speaking, Hans, that you and I do. I think it's kind of something that, to sort of share that we're all terrified of doing this. Each speaker out there is terrified. And so I help sort of people tell their story and then just build their brand from the LinkedIn perspective.
Fantastic. Well, a lot of you that are joining and have become part of the new HAPS family have an opportunity to share your story, share your interest, bring in and talk with people that have something of value to contribute, because we all have our stories and we can all learn from each other. And so today, as you have questions, anything for these two wonderful women, please feel free to shoot it in the chat. We'll be bringing those up. And we're going to start off with something that Amy told me at one of the conference events. And that was that within about 30 seconds of watching somebody speak, whether it was on video or whether it was in a room, she knew almost perfectly what their score was going to be and how good of a speaker. How is it that you have learned that over these years? And what is it that you're looking for? What is it that really sets apart somebody who might have good content, might be an expert, but just doesn't translate that to the audience, and somebody that's really one of those exceptional dynamic speakers that you love to book at your events?
I think first of all, the most important thing is that if this is something that you want to do and you have a story that you want to share, you have to be passionate about it. You know, you can't just think, oh, this is just something I want to check off my career list. I'd like to speak at a conference. No, you have to be really, passionate is the best word to use about your subject matter and why you want to be there. And I find the best speakers are the ones who are really there to teach, who are there to share their story, to help the audience, improve in ways, not, just to sort of, I mean, we all see speakers, and we all have seen them, and I get pitched by them quite a bit, who they have sort of like a standard speech that they can sort of direct to any audience. And, I'll get the emails that say, hi, Amy, is your project management audience looking for communication skills? And, they'll send it off to like HR people or whatever. They're not really invested in the group that we're providing the audience for. The ones that do best and resonate the most are people who care about what they're talking about, who care about their community, in this case, project managers, business analysts, administrative professionals, and really feel like they have a story to share. They bring a lot of charisma and excitement to their topic. They're excited to share what they have, and in turn, that makes the audience very excited about what they want to share or what they want to learn. So those people who have that, and that's why they're in it, are the ones who win it, because their aim is true. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you run some really diverse events. Tell us a little bit about your audiences, because when the audiences, like, they're paying often a significant amount of money to attend. They're taking time away from work, which means they just have to make up the work, because we never truly get real vacation.
Yeah.
What is it that audiences are generally looking for? And then how does that translate to the speakers and people providing the content? And the reason I bring this up is a number of the people that we have who've popped up in the chat have their own shows. They're building their brand and their audience. What is it that they should look for to better connect with the people who are coming to them for some valuable information?
Okay. You know what? People want to have fun while they're learning. They don't want to be spoken to. They want to be part of the conversation. And, because I've been doing what I've been doing for so long, I'm very familiar with all the different speakers that, typically, we use a lot of the same people because they're just fan favorites. So I'm very familiar with their approach and their presentation styles. But it's really to make sure that you're not talking to the audience, you're talking with the audience. You're creating a conversation. You're making people feel comfortable in the room, that they're going to put up their hand and they're going to ask a question, or they're going to, engage with each other, which is, vitally important at these conferences and things like that. So I'm not going as far to say it's edutainment, because obviously there has to be value. You're not going to spend $1,500, $2,000 to come to an event to just sit there and go, you could go to a comedy club for that. But, at the same time, you want the material and that you're presenting and offering to them to be really engaging and capture their attention and inspire them and motivate them. And, I think that's done by bringing a great sense of humor to your presentation, a lot of energy, and, listening skills, and being really intuitive to make sure you are capturing the audience and you can see that they're relating to you.
Absolutely. Well, and in these events, was probably the most diverse group. We had people who were very technical, very tactical, and here's how you do it. Here's practical. And then we had, some of our favorite people that were showing how bartending relates to project management, or singing opera in the middle of a keynote speech, and with just wild theatrics, keynote speakers showing up dressed as Wonder Woman. So how do you, so one of the things you're looking at is kind of balancing that level of content. Tell us a little bit about being true to yourself. Like, I could never dress in a Wonder Woman costume. Well, let me just say, nobody wants to see me in a Wonder Woman costume. How do you, how do you find that people are being genuine to who they are? And then I'd love to have Leslie chime in on being true to yourself and tying that into your strengths and your brand building, so that we're not trying to copy somebody else. We're trying to do something that has value.
Okay. I have actually a good story to tell about this that'll sort of demonstrate that. When I first started running the events, my predecessor would always be the person who got on stage to, like, kick off opening remarks, welcome the crowd, introduce the keynote speaker. Now, he had years of experience in project management and business analysis. He knew the ins and outs of everything. He knew what was going on within the industries. And he would always kick off the conferences almost in a State of the Union, in a way that, it's been a great year for the business analysis community. We saw the introduction of the CBAP. We did this, blah, 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 blah. Could talk to all of that. And so when I started sort of taking over and getting on stage and doing that, I thought, well, that's what I had to do too. And I certainly did not have the expertise nor the knowledge that he had. And so I would get on stage and be like, wow, what a year. We saw some new certifications, and wow, it's really, people are like on their phones and looking up. And see, that's not me. No. When I, reading off the paper, doing whatever, writing the speech, I kind of tend to fly by the seat of my pants. I love, improv. I love, and I have a lot of energy, and that wasn't a fair representation to me. And that's why I would just be sick to my stomach. Well, every time I had to go on. Don't get me wrong, I still get nervous. But now when I get on, I focus on what my greatest strength is and what I love doing most, and that's connecting people. So I tend to kick off the events not with talking about the industry, not with talking, a State of the Union, but rather introducing myself and getting everyone to meet each other. So I always kick off the events with, like high energy, corny jokes, the whole 9 yards. That's me, but also getting people out of their chairs, moving around, meeting each other, taking the good 10 minutes off the top instead of talking about the history or where we've been, is just actually getting people connected. And I found that's worked so well, because it's like, you're at a conference, most people are there by themselves. They don't know boo. Maybe they're with a couple of, coworkers or whatever. But it's a great way to start things off and get people talking with each other and connecting with each other. And it just makes the experience at the event so much better, because now there's familiar faces in every track room you go to, or you're having lunch. It's already instant, you have an instant rapport. So, that's a sample, I guess. Sorry if I went on a little long about that, about being true to myself. I wasn't when I was trying to be like my boss. I was far more successful and more engaging to the audience when I was being me.
Great advice. Leslie, we look at it from a little bit different perspective, because we met through Amy, and we'll hit on the networking shortly here. But from a speaker's point of view and from a brand building, and for you as a coach too, how do you help people find their voice? How do you figure out what works for them? Because even you and I, we're very similar compared to most, but our presentations, our content, we're very different in how we do it. So how do people figure out what is their voice? How do they translate their brand into these public events?
Yeah, I think that I think almost every presenter out there beats themselves up. And I have to, Amy is the best, because she does pick the best people in the world. And Amy, I just have to give you so much, I don't mean to be a bit sycophantic, but you set the tone so well in your conferences that the speakers are happy, the attendees are happy, everybody feels like we're all in this together, regardless of the size of the community out there. So, and you've done such a great job too, Amy, insofar as giving people chances. I had done a little bit of speaking before, but because of Amy, I'm able to dial up even more. And Hans, this, and she's given so many of the speakers on her, in her sort of in camp, in her group of the speakers that she's got too, like, and some of them have gone like as far as doing big keynotes, right? So Amy's really empowered a lot of people. I just have to give her the kudos for sort of giving people an opportunity and then allowing them to sort of step into it and step into that value. So thank you, Amy. So I think the other part of it is, and to your point, Hans, is we all have a very different style. And I will continue to pick myself apart for talking too fast, giving too much information, being a little bit too, like, I mean, I've had one feedback form said she seemed a little manic.
I've gotten that too.
You've got that on this show too.
Not about me, not about Leslie.
But I think if we don't sort of step into it and be our authentic self, then we're taking away from that authenticity. And quite frankly, no one wants to show up at a conference and listen to someone go, I've got some really great PowerPoint presentations here for you today.
Let's talk about requirements gathering.
Nobody wants to sit through that. So I think a part of it, and it just becomes a little bit more natural over time to step into your value, to recognize that when maybe you're being like, we all have to write bios about ourselves, and then invariably someone has to introduce us, and it's always kind of humbling to have someone read back, here's Leslie Hughes. Leslie Hughes is the author of Create, Connect, Convert. She did it, and you sit there and you kind of go like it's weird and awkward to sort of sit there and have everyone tell you how amazing you are when you've written it yourself. But also the more times you do it, the more comfortable you get with, yeah, I've done it. Because as Amy said, when you're coming from a place of service, when you're there to really help people, then you're not bragging. And in fact, if you shy away from your accomplishments, you're actually doing a disservice to the people who need to know what you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's very good. So for everyone who's joined, we're here with Amy Riddell. She leads 3 amazing conference categories, events, with 10 actual events. Sorry. So 10 events. And Leslie Hughes, who is a LinkedIn specialist. And we're talking about building your personal brand, speaking, getting your message out to people. And I want to pivot a little bit because the other side to this that to me has been oddly far more rewarding has been the networking. And I will say Amy is a master networker who builds lifelong friendships with attendees without trying. Whereas as she starts off an event with everybody get up and meet, I'm trying to find a table to hide behind because I'm such an introvert. So for those who struggle, because, here we've got a great audience with HAPS, meeting and building some friendships. How do we take this forum and then start making those connections and turning those connections into something that will last and does have this longer value?
I'm probably going to defer to Leslie to that, especially on the social media side. But I just wanted to sort of interject in that I started my career off in nonprofit. I worked for the Chamber of Commerce, and we would host, I guess, at least 4 or 5 times a month networking events. Now, the definition of networking is very different than how many people approach it. I think a lot of people see it as, well, what can you do for me? Sort of thing. And I would see that at these Chamber of Commerce events, like, I've got this product, I've got this service, as opposed to it's not. It's really just it's just developing a relationship, and more so than anything, how you can help someone. And the best networkers are the people who, kind of step out of their shell, realize, they have to take risks. You have to introduce yourself to someone. What's someone going to say? Go away. Like, everyone's there for the same reason. And to really make yourself available and supportive. And I find that people who do that and who take those steps, who take the extra step to connect with you on LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter, whatever, but then maintain. And this is what I always, say at the conferences. It's like, you're going to meet a ton of people, And that's great. And you're going to have a great time. You're going to go out for drinks at the bar after. You might even go out for dinner, go here, go there. But it's what happens after the event. It's maintaining those and making sure, it's just dropping a quick email to say, hi, how are you doing? But I think Leslie can talk about, really successful ways that people can, sort of plan that.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways that I'm more of an extrovert than an introvert, but I consider myself sort of an ambivert. But even as an extrovert, I hated networking. I do. It's not easy for anybody, even when you're the most outgoing person, because there's that fear someone's going to reject you. And most of the time, everyone else has that same fear as well. One of the tips that I have for networking, and this might even be even better for the introverts, is be early. Because if you're like the first person who shows up, if you're an early person, Amy's going to tell them, no, not too early. Don't jump too early. But if
I'm still fixing the signs.
Not when they're putting up the signs. But if you show up early and you're one of the very first people there, other people have to come and talk to you, right? You're already there. You're sort of skulking around, and the people are like, hey, you sort of get brought into the fold as opposed to trying to break into those people that are already in a crowd of people already. Proactively, there's ways to do it if you're using social channels. So if you can find out who some of the speakers are ahead of time, some of the attendees, the delegates ahead of time, you can go and connect with them on LinkedIn proactively, go onto Twitter proactively. There's ways to connect with them before you even enter the room so that you don't feel like the kid that's in grade 9 or 9th grade that doesn't know anybody that's walking into school for the first time, because we all feel like that.
Yeah.
And to Amy's point, it's like maintain those, make sure that you're connecting with people when you're there so that the next time you go to the conference, there's familiar faces there and that you've had, it's not just, oh, I just saw you last year. Do you remember me? Or, you kind of keep those relationships going, because that's the whole point of these conferences, right? The networking piece is so crucial. And I think that's what we're missing out. We realize how much we miss other people. I miss you guys. You guys in face to face.
You know what we do is prior to the event, what I like to do is send when we're sending out information pre-event, and especially when the events are offsite, like in Orlando or Boston or something. I don't like to send things through like an automated email service. I like them to come from my desktop to the attendees. And I always say, please introduce yourself at the registration desk, especially if you're coming alone. And people will often say, oh, I'm coming by myself, I've never been. And I would say, find me. Because in every city, we have this great, we have these great advisory boards that are sort of people that are on the ground in those various cities who are, invested in the event. They help design it and stuff. And they're also there to be ambassadors and to meet people and make them feel comfortable. Here, come join us at this table or what have you. So establishing, back to Leslie's point, establishing a relationship prior to the event. So when you get there, you know that there's someone that you can connect with who is going to sort of take you and carry you and introduce you around. I think that's like a really crucial thing to do, especially at some of the larger ones too. You can feel very lost, like in an event like Toronto where we have like 1,500 people. And I'm not just talking about my own events. I mean, any of us who go to conferences, like if you're going to like, I don't know, BBC or some, regardless of where it is. It can change the experience for you 100% if you do a little bit of homework and sort of, especially if you're a bit of an introvert, and make sure you establish some, key people there that you can connect with and they can help you, sort of transition into that whole thing.
Because once you have that one person and you kind of like go like Hansel and Gretel sort of through the conference. Yeah. You sort of like have your little sidekick, and then it's so much easier to break into other conversations when you have your sidekick with you. Yeah. And just even kind of going back to the LinkedIn thing, most speakers, we want to build an audience, right? So we're open to connecting with people. So just be sure to send a personalized connection request. Hey, I see that you're speaking at Project World, whatever conference. Talk to the speakers more often than not. We're not just there to do our presentation, and then especially at Amy's, we all kind of love to hang out with Amy, so we stick around. She's like, oh wait, get rid. No, no. We all want to hang because we have so much fun there. Yeah. Amy has the best conferences, hands down.
Well, and that's what I want to try and translate for our audience here and the people who will be watching the recording later is we want to try and create that same feeling that Amy has created at her events, and it even happens in the virtual events. So this isn't just an in-person thing, which is it's kind of effortless. She starts off by being warm and inviting and getting people not to pass off business cards, but to say hi and share something interesting. Mm-hmm. And then she's not only herself, but she's always connecting people. And the speakers that have built these relationships are connecting, going, oh, wait a minute, you're in this area. You need to meet Leslie, or you need to meet Paul, or you need to meet Jen. And it really builds these lifelong friendships. We have, a few people who are watching and in the comments are people that I have become good friends with because of these events. And even in some ways with the virtual events, there's a discussion going on. So it doesn't have to be that script. Instead, it's just hanging out, making yourself available and talking about it. So for everyone who's viewing, if you have questions, if you have stories, if there's things that we can touch on that would be of value to you, let us know. If anyone wants to reach out and connect with Amy and Leslie, you can always do that through myself as well, or, follow them as well. But what I want to do is, it's hard to translate how you build that audience and community. And that's really what I'm trying to help people get across. So what are some ways, like you said, it's just simply talking about something that you thought was interesting, or saying, hey, do you know somebody who, how do people help build that just effortless community around their brand or their event or their channel?
Leslie?
as long as the communication doesn't come out, keeps cutting out on me. So I think, one of the things that I do, and I know you do that too, Hans, is that we invite people that are participating to join us. We kind of, to build your brand in this example, like, with this kind of promotion that you do for this kind of forum that you've got here on HAPS, you and I both promoted it ahead of time. I mean, I couldn't get over some of the feedback that we got when we spoke together, and that was reshared, and then people watched it and so forth. So, you have to kind of do a little bit of self-promotion in a way where you're sort of like excited about, again, giving value. You're not bragging when you're giving value, and you're really thinking about your audience. So you promote it ahead of time. You ask people at the conference. I'm often saying, hey, join me on LinkedIn. Here's my URL. I try to get everybody in the room to join with each other on LinkedIn, because that's my channel of choice, right? So, if you can use these networks, the networks, like all different networking opportunities allow you to build a bigger audience and then parlays into, again, more people are following you, and the business opportunities. To your point, Hans, the networking opportunities I've had at conferences have almost always led into business opportunities. And it's not because I'm shelling out, hey, want to buy my stuff, but really, I want to be of service, and I have, I'm willing to help you. And they almost always turn into business opportunities for me as well, in addition to just the speaking part of things.
Oh.
So Hans is out this time. It wasn't me. I see Hans's mouth moving, but I don't.
Sorry. Hey, technical idiocy. I'm proving that we all make mistakes, and you just roll with it. I double-clicked the mute. So two of the, to Leslie's point, two of the last three positions I've been hired for were directly related to Amy's events. Somebody who had seen me speak, and at one of the events, they called and said, hey, could I steal you away from the company? Remember how you were talking about building centers of excellence and building out these more mature practices in this area? We have a client who just is struggling, and we need somebody from the ground up to help them go, or we're going to lose them as a client. And I was like, you know what? It's a good time. I'm ready to move on and do something different. And so I ended up joining, and it opened up a whole new world to me. So you never know who is going to listen and who's going to potentially be able to use your services, or often the reverse. I'll meet people and say, you need to talk to this person. They need your help.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some advice, for people who are looking to speak and put something forward. But I know, and of course, what did they say? That public speaking is right there under like the fear of death. as like the things people are most petrified of, and it's true. And Hans and Leslie, you two do this very well. Is doing a tag team presentation with a colleague. Yeah. I always recommend, if you have a team member and you two have a really good synergy and can present well together, why not do that? I think that's a great idea. It makes it a little bit more interesting sometimes for the participants, and it certainly will alleviate a lot of the fright and the stress and the anxiety of being up in front of a room of 5 to 100 people by yourself. So I always encourage that as well, because we want more people to sort of step into these roles and put forward abstracts and presentations for the events. God, we run these events like all over Canada and the US. You see a lot of the same people. A lot of the same people we will feature, but Leslie had said earlier about giving people a shot. Like I don't necessarily, someone doesn't have to have experience. We sometimes ask for it in the application process, but just because you don't have any doesn't mean, we're not going to give someone a shot.
And being a public speaker is one of the best things you can do for your brand, really, because you become the expert.
Oh.
And I was terrified. The first time I had to do a presentation in front of 10 people, I was melting. I thought I was going to die. And, and I've become more comfortable with it because the fear that I feel inside, I've reframed it into excitement.
Yeah.
And because it's the same adrenaline that's rushing and coursing through your body. And also, I realized that the nervousness that I have, and we talked about this last time, Hans, too, like that nervousness that we all get when we get on stage, we're all freaking out, but we don't necessarily, the audience doesn't necessarily see it. And then eventually our heart comes down, the heart rate comes down. And I've realized, like, particularly when I was on television or whenever I've been recorded, I realized I'm freaking out inside. But the camera hasn't necessarily picked that up. They pick on me being enthusiastic, and you have to have a big presence, and people like people with enthusiasm. So, so that fear that you might, as a first-time presenter, might feel inside, the audience doesn't necessarily feel that same thing. Mm-hmm. They don't see you same.
Yeah, and having a co-presenter or somebody like here on HAPS. I could get up here and I could talk, I could tell stories, and I could talk at you. But by bringing in people to talk to talk with, to present with, it shares different perspectives. And what one of us says cues another story for someone else. Yeah. And we don't always know what we're saying translates to the audience. So having somebody else there with you is great, because then they can reshape, reform, and build on what you've said. And often that takes the whole presentation, takes your story, your value to a new level. Even if it's simple as, like in HAPS, you can pull people into your broadcast, and instead of just taking their questions and answering them, bring them in and make them part of the discussion. Or what I've decided to do is I'm pulling through my network, the people that I think would be interesting and have great stories to tell, and bringing them into this forum to share those stories, to share things that they can talk about from a more of an expert's position than I can, and they're more entertaining.
Well, and so your point, Amy, too, about having a co-presenter. So I'm not a business analyst. I'm not a project man. I mean, I have done project management, but so having Hans, when we had that long, like an 8-hour workshop day, because I will start to go down these sort of like paths where, and then I lose myself, and then Hans becomes the Leslie whisperer who gets me to kind of like, what she's trying to say is, and like really brings it back to reality. So we kind of riff well off each other, because I bring the zaniness and he brings the practicality. Like she might be speaking another language to all of you, and I'm going to tell you this is what she's trying to say. So it does help sort of reel me in. And then if I lose myself and I get nervous, I just look to Hans and I go like, help me here, help me. You know, if you have fun with it, the audience or the people that are in the room, they think it's kind of fun that you're being authentic and funny and playful about it too. So
yeah, absolutely. And again, like I said before, and those are the presenters and the speakers that that the audience resonates with the most. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's the insincere ones. We've seen those ones.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the ones that are on stage and they do the big keynote and then they're whisked away and everyone sort of feels a little unsatisfied at the end, you know, because people aren't really there to, because so some of the best ones, Amy, is, you know, like stick around afterwards. They're there to be interested. They're answering questions. They're really genuinely interested.
Colin and Justin.
Yeah.
They were so fun. They stayed. They came to the bar. A lot of them do. Mark Tewksbury is another one. I'm just trying to think of some of our keynotes that we've had. God, I could go on and on, but yeah, they stick around. They hang out. They don't just do, you know, the Q&A and book signing at the end. They're like, well, what's going on now? Can we go to that? And I was like, yeah. We always encourage, absolutely. And you know what? They provide so much more value for the people that are there as well, because they're getting, you know, one-on-one time. And I'm talking about with any of the speakers, but often some of the events when we do have some of like people with like, you know, some name recognition for whatever reason, they're always so approachable. And that's something that I really sort of ask for too when I'm booking a speaker through a speakers bureau, when it's someone that, you know, is a name, is that, you know, they've got to be willing and wanting to hang out afterwards and, you know, do the selfie pics and, you know, sign the books or just have, you know, quick little conversations with people, because that just, again, when, like, you know, I keep talking about the experience, but that contributes so much to the experience for the attendees. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm very customer centric, and I want my audience to be happy and have fun. Say my events are the best.
They are the best. They are. And I think also it helps lend itself to the brand, because we've all encountered those celebrities or those people that, you know, maybe we into high esteem, and then you meet them and you go, oh, I don't like that person at all.
Oh, so, yeah, that's happened.
Yeah. So when those speakers actually are genuinely, and I had some of the speakers that you've had, like I had heard bad things before I met them, and then I'm like, that was so wrong. Like whoever said that about them, and that goes to their brand, because then regular people tell their friends, like, oh my gosh, they're so excited because, like, oh my gosh, I hung out with Colin and Justin, or whomever, like the speaker is, and we get so excited because we just want to be seen by them, and we're going to tell all our friends what the amazing experience that we had was and how great the conference was that we saw. You know, another great one was Joel Cohen, who spoke at your conference. I mean, he was so terrific. The guy from the writer from The Simpsons,
he's a writer and producer of The Simpsons.
Yeah, writer and producer for The Simpsons, stuck around, hung out. You know, he was so engaging and so lovely, and I mean, so funny, so funny,
and so self-deprecating. Oh my God, yeah, just awesome guy.
Well, and AJ brings up, and AJ's another one of our fellow speakers, and you know, from the, we call it the cult of Amy, the circle that connects.
No, we don't call it that.
Well, we do, you don't. But he brings up that a lot of times there's things that you may not feel comfortable talking about in a public setting, and being able to reach out afterwards, whether it's to another participant, maybe somebody else, you saw something in the chat channel and it resonated, and reaching out to them to talk about it, or talking to somebody who was on one of the events. And most depending on the quality of the event, and this is why, you know, we keep bragging about Amy's events and why I have her on the show, is she really does a great job of filtering and making sure that people genuinely are there to help, which means we're hanging out in between sessions. We're hanging out until they kick us out of the ballroom and just chit-chatting about the same stuff, and anybody can come over and talk about it. Or sometimes we might, you know, get up and move to a private table to talk about something that maybe they're not comfortable addressing in public. And that's really, I'd say for our audience here, there's two big lessons. Look for sincere and genuine channels. Like, for the most part, I've seen that in HAPS. The people here are genuinely trying to share and help and build a community. So look for forums, look for events like Amy's that give you that opportunity. And then the second is take advantage of those opportunities as well, to make yourself available, to make those connections, and to build. You never know. Like the friends I've built through these events are people I truly love and would have missed out on if it wasn't for Amy seeing me speak because I had been booked by somebody else. And she's like, hey, you don't stink that bad. How would you feel about flying to a city and doing that same thing again? And then I was flying to more cities. And then eventually I built up the confidence and the ability to deliver. And so Amy's responsible for my keynote speaking. She gave me the first chance. She told me what it would take to get to that level. And it set a goal. And when I reached it, she said, I'll give you a chance in this one city. If you don't screw it up, I'll book you more. If you screw it up, you're back in the little rooms. Not the last part, but she gave me a chance to prove it. And it's made a world of difference in my life.
Well, you've made a world of difference in mine.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, we're kind of approaching towards the end of where we normally try and cut off the broadcast. So let's end with a little fun. Again, if anyone has any last questions, anything you want us to bring up, please, we're more than happy to answer, and we don't have a hard stop time. But what are some of your favorite memories or favorite stories around speaking or networking? You know, there's so many, but what are some of your favorites that you'd like to share here?
About speaking or networking, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Or anything around these events. It's no longer called the Cult of Amy.
I don't sort of mean to be so bragging about Amy, but I've attended quite a few different conferences, and it doesn't. You don't necessarily get that same, like you call it camp, and it does have that feeling where we're like, you know, we just love to be there. I mean, like the project management one is great. I love the administration, like the administrative professional, the ABC conferences. I absolutely love, and I think a lot of times, like any organization, you know, it comes from top down. So when Amy's like brings in the fun, like you can't help, it's infectious, and she brings in these great speakers. So it doesn't happen at every conference, I can tell you that much. And so, yeah, it really does. It does come down to you're gonna get out of it what you put into it, but it is sort of like find your tribe, find your people, and I think that certainly helps.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that, because I think my mother's actually watching this. So
yay!
She has no idea what I do. So this is gonna be
Hi, Mom. We miss you.
She comes to the event. She knows. I've even had her work the reg desk before.
Awesome.
I don't think you've never met her, Hans.
Yeah, we met in Toronto when my wife was up as well. She came by at lunch, and we got to hang out for a while. She sat and marvelous lady, amazing. Talk about somebody that's got a wealth of stories to tell. Just amazing.
Yeah. I can think of one story. Well, I could go on and on, like conference stories. I know when we get together, we're always like, oh my God. And then do you remember in Orlando that time? Or, you know, remember Clinton at this one or what have you. But one of the best ones, and Hans, are you okay with telling me about Orlando? And
yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead. I figured this would come up.
I don't know if it wasn't the very first year. It was the second year running there, because you weren't at the very first conference. It was at the second year. And for people who are watching it may not know, Hans is based out of Atlanta. So he drove to the event in Orlando, and it was like, you know, it was a very cute, it's a nice facility. It's it was probably built in the 70s. So, the hotel itself, the conference center was new and beautiful. But, big gardens and pools and stuff. And so when you come out of the conference area, there's this big, spacious, grassy area. And so, the closing keynote's over. I think it was actually Bob Prentice, and everyone's all like, ah! And, everyone comes walking out of the door, and there's Hans with a cooler the size of, and I'm not kidding you, on wheels, the size of a coffin, loaded with every single thing you could possibly ever want. And he just set it up there. And it wasn't like, oh, this is an exclusive party for my friends. No, it was like for all the conference attendees. And people were just like, what is this event? What's going on? And, everyone just hung out. Someone else was blaring music out of their their little travel speaker, Bluetooth or whatever thingy it was. And it became a scene. And then we did it again the next year because people were like, well, is that happening again? Is that thing happening again afterwards? But it was very, very cool. And, really kind of set the tone for, remember I don't know if Hans, you remember the guy who was there from Saudi Arabia?
Yes, I do.
And he came and we all went for dinner at the hotel restaurant after. He said, I came to this event. My company sent me. I was expecting to spend all my time in my hotel room. And he goes, and I have just met the best people. And then I think he picked up the dinner bill for like 15 to 20 people or something.
He did, yeah.
And I'm not saying it's because, my events are so great. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the people at my events, like yourself, like Leslie, like Paul, like, Bob, Clinton, God, I could go on, Bruce, Daniel, Jen, it's just AJ, especially. That's what makes it great are the people that, speak and attend and sponsor.
Right. Well, and normally after the first day of the conference, there is a social. It's usually sponsored by one of the event vendors. And, there's a cocktail hour or so, appetizers, things like that. But it's always so fun. And then people break into groups and they decide where to go and they meet up people and they all go out to dinner. And one of the nice things about Orlando is the weather's so beautiful. It's usually early, so a lot of people are escaping snow. Yeah. And just as a way to say thank you to all the people who had attended and to just continue that's kind of what sponsored it. So I got Amy's permission and she said, sure, worst the hotel's going to do is kick you out. It's like, that's fair. And so, we had a wide assortment of adult beverages and cocktails and water for those people that did not partake. And we stayed, I don't know, I closed everything down and around midnight. I heard some people stayed out later than that, but it was just everyone talking and sharing stories and regrouping. And it was just, it was amazing. It was just amazing to do. It really brought a lot of people together. We heard great stories. We had people share. Some people said, I think I really want to try and get up and speak. How do I do it? And then now they've become regular speakers. Just an amazing event and amazing people.
Or get involved with planning. A lot of people, speaking's just not their jam. They don't want to do that. They don't want to be in front. They like how the conference is run and how do you choose the speakers and how do you do sort of the back end operations things. So a lot of people who participate on our advisory boards, as I said earlier, we have 2 in every city, have been people who came up after and pulled me aside and said, how can I help with this? I really want to be part of this. And that's, and that's paramount as well. Like it's, our advisory boards in every city are, just have everything to do with the success of the event as well, because they're on the ground promoting it and on site being the ambassadors. So we don't ever want to leave them out. You were an advisory board in Atlanta.
Nope.
Yes, you were.
Nope, never did that. I was just a speaker. I did a lot with the local chapter, so I knew the people, but I didn't qualify as an official advisor.
Well, that's only because I was not running that event then.
Well, we're hitting. Go ahead, Leslie. Sorry.
I mean, there's also the volunteers. The volunteers. Your volunteers at your event. Yeah. And that's a nice way if someone, say, like a small business owner who doesn't necessarily have the budget for the entrance fee or something like that.
They get to come to the event for free. They introduce the speakers, and a lot of them, from doing their introductions and things like that, they're honing their skills doing that. So that's another option for people breaking. Okay, you don't think you're ready to do something quite like a full-on 60-minute conference session? Why don't you try volunteering where you're, it's still in front of the crowd, but you're opening it, you're introducing the speaker. That's always like a good way to hone the craft. I can't believe I just used that word. And I sound like an 80s actress. But just get comfortable being in front of a group of people.
Yeah. And then again, like if I can just sort of, my last thing is remember to like share these things as sort of humble brags on your LinkedIn profile of even if you're not speaking, the fact that you're attending conferences and you're showing people that you are invested in your career and all that other stuff, it helps your brand. It helps people see you as a thought leader.
Yeah.
Well, I want to really thank Amy and Leslie for giving up part of their evening to share their tips and thoughts. If you like them, let us know in the comments. Definitely happy to bring them back. You're getting a glimpse of what it's kind of like to be at some of these events, and the teamwork and the stories, and it just builds. There's just so much that I'm hoping that you were able to learn. I've learned a lot from both of these wonderful women, and hope that you did too. Anything you want to share in close? Either of you would like to share in closing?
Go Lancers!
Go Lancers!
For people who don't know, Leslie and I went to high school together. Agincourt Collegiate. Scarborough.
Go ACL.
Go Lancers.
Go ACL. Go Lancers.
Well, thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. I hope you got something of value out of it. It's why we're here. It's why we're doing this. I encourage you, take the step, start up one of HAP's channel, start up a conversation on something that you're interested in. You don't have to be an expert. You can bring people in to talk about it, like I did tonight, 2 areas that I'm just not as qualified to talk about, but I have connections that can help. And then reach out. Go ahead and start building your brand through speaking at events, virtual conferences. It really does open a lot of doors, or at least start attending them, because you get to meet the people and you never know where it's going to lead. So I want to thank everyone for joining us here. For everyone who is recording, please follow us on any of the channels so that you can see what our next broadcast is. I'm trying to do these about every Tuesday and Thursday around 5:15 Eastern Standard Time. So we hope you can join. And if not, please let us know what's working and not working for you in the comments on any of the channels. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day, and everybody please stay healthy.
Bye-bye. Thank you.